Hi everyone, Steve Visic from Smartson again. Today I'm talking with Ben Franzi. He's the General Manager of Parcel and Express Services at Australia Post. And we're talking to him about their Star Trek Express division, which Smartson's had a 10-year partnership with now. G'day Ben, how are you?
Good, Steve. How are things today?
Yeah, not too bad, thanks. Not too bad. Thanks for coming in.
No problem.
So I'll get into it. So most people will know about Australia Post, but for those that don't know about Star Trek, can you explain the difference between Australia Post and Star Trek and what Star Trek specialises in?
Yeah, so Star Trek really specialises in our speed services. So they do a road transport speed function, and which really handles a lot of the big B2B volumes into retailers, spare parts. And then the other one is our premium air function, which does, again, a lot of e-commerce work, giving next day delivery to consumers and also a lot of sort of B2B urgent deliveries. And then there's a much smaller segment around courier and next flight, which is sort of almost the same day urgent deliveries.
Okay, great. Thanks for that. And why do you feel Star Trek is a good fit for e-commerce?
So e-commerce is really continuing to ramp up on the speed. Even post-COVID, we expect speed to still to be one of the battlegrounds for e-commerce, where consumers are really wanting their parcels quick to them. And Star Trek's a good fit for that because you can get same day delivery through our courier network and you can get next day delivery through the premium network. So continuing to provide that almost in-store type experience for online becomes really important as we continue to see the massive growth rates for online at the moment.
Yeah, no, definitely. Okay, and what type of products do you feel fit well within the Star Trek system? I mean, most people understand Australia Post and what they move. What sort of products are good for Star Trek from your experience?
It's almost quite similar, to be honest. In the premium network, it's a very similar. It's a actual small parcel business that is really driving out speed. The road business is quite a bit different. It really handles pallets really well. It handles big bulky items, in-store drops. It does a lot of the time-specific deliveries into the big retailers and the big warehouses. So there is quite a difference between Star Trek Premium and Star Trek Road in terms of the products that they really do focus on. Premium it will do B2C. Road really does only a little bit B2C.
Right. Okay. Yep. Thanks for that. And give us a bit of an update on what's the latest news at Star Trek and technology improvements, that sort of thing.
Yeah, so we continue to do quite a large integration with the Australia Post side of the world. So we're looking at how do we integrate last mile across Australia Post and Star Trek. And our part of that is a complete new scanner technology platform that we've rolled across both processing and delivery. So we can then optimize our delivery within the multiple channels we have. So whether that be a Australia Post driver, whether it be a Star Trek driver or Star Trek Road driver, we're able to optimize to get the best service to the customer across that. So from a technology point of view, scanning is really critical, and we've done a massive investment in what we've called the next generation scanning program is a big example.
Okay. Yeah, I have to say from my experience, yeah, the tracking with Australia Post and Star Trek's improved immensely in the last year or two. So yeah, and that's definitely moving ahead leaps and bounds. And we're obviously in the middle of COVID-19 at the moment.
Yeah.
What's the impact on your operations from that?
Well, it's a hard one to answer because it's still ongoing, to be honest, and the isolation and the social distancing continues. There's probably been three big impacts from a COVID-19. The first one is the dramatic rise in B2C volume. You're seeing anywhere between 60 to 80% growth in B2C, which is impacting the demand for product across all the Australia Post and Star Trek networks. The second big one has been the lack of passenger flights flying in the country. So with Qantas being almost grounded and Virgin almost, again, same grounded, there's very few passenger flights, and a big component of the air network was using passenger flights. So we've brought on more freighters to get more planes in the air to be able to cope with the volume. So we've upped our freighter fleet to try and replace some of that passenger capacity we were previously using. But that's a big change from an operational perspective. And the final one has been implementing social distancing in our processing sheds. So just changing the way that the operations have to do their job to smaller workforces that work specifically on specific tasks, so that if one of those team members is identified with COVID, we're able to isolate that team, not isolate the whole facility. So trying to make sure the facility can be up and running as quick as possible to be able to get that processing done within a matter of hours, rather than actually having to take the facility offline for a day or two to deep clean the whole facility, and then also lose a large chunk of the workforce. So they're probably the three big impacts that we're seeing right at the moment.
Yeah, okay. All right. And final question, what's on the 12-month horizon for Star Track? What's happening over the next year?
Yeah, well, there'll be a big sort of a increase in capacity, especially around the premium side. We're watching, I guess, closely from a customer perspective around toll at the moment, given a lot of the conversations in toll and Japan Post, and of course now their recent cyber attacks. So there's a big sort of watching brief around what the industry does overall from a capacity point of view. We will finalise our next generation rollout, so that will finalise into the Star Track piece. So again, upgrading that scanner piece. And then finally, it's kind of what actually will be the demand plan post-COVID of e-commerce. So do we end up at a much higher rate of e-commerce, and then how do we scale our networks up to be able to cope with that?
Yeah, okay. All right. Well, that's all great, Ben. I appreciate that. Thanks for your time today. And we'll talk to you soon.
No problems. Thanks, Steve.
Okay, thanks, Ben. Bye.